was you.
No, it was not.
Good afternoon. I'll call to order the meeting of the New Ulm Public Utilities Commission for November 2019. First item on the agenda is to review the minutes from our last meeting.
Move to approve the minutes of the October meeting.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? We have a motion and second to approve the October 22, 2019 minutes of the Public Utilities Commission. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is to receive the report from our utility director and recognize our employee of the month.
Okay, President Heine, Commissioners, I just have a couple things to point out on the director's report. Under electric distribution, the crews are working on the overhead to underground conversion on 3rd North Alley between Minnesota and Broadway. They're also working on removing the overhead lines along Summit Avenue and preparing to install conduit along the south side of Highway 14. This is to feed the new Armory building that's proposed. The gas department has checked their large volume customer meters and volume correctors for proper operation. They do that once a year. And also they are working on welding and installing a 4-inch main and have made the connection to a low pressure system for the new Highway 27 district regulating station. Water department has finished their yearly hydrant flushing. And just as a note, we have commissioned 2 distributed generation interconnections, which would be solar. One was residential and one was high school. So that was completed in October as well. If there isn't any other questions, I can go to Employee of the Month. Employee of the Month for October was Glenn Hillesheim. He's the Assistant Chief Engineer in the Electric Production Department. Glenn serves as the position of Assistant Chief Engineer, and he's been employed by the Public Utilities since May of 2006. Glenn has advanced in his position as the assistant immensely. He has taken his role in the electric production to another level, while also handling trouble issues, reports, etc. He strives to know all there is about the plant and has conquered most of it. He has made the supervisor's position a lot easier, as he doesn't have to try and handle everything alone. He's a valued and dedicated employee and a friend who makes a difference with whatever he takes on. Glenn's willingness to listen and learn is his strongest asset, not quick to judge, and his knowledge of our plant makes him another go-to person in the department. The power plant is very glad to have him as part of their team. So congratulations, Glenn Hillesheim.
I'll offer the motion to receive and order file the report regarding monthly utility operations.
I'll second.
Any discussion on that motion? All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And then I'll offer the motion to recognize Glenn Hillesheim, Assistant Chief Engineer in the Electrical Production Department, as Employee of the Month for October 2019.
Second.
Okay, other than stating, our thank you on behalf of the commissioner, is there any other discussion on that motion? All in favor of recognizing Glenn Hillesheim as Employee of the Month indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now for old business, we need to consider approving selection of a contractor for customer steam audits.
Good evening. So just to refresh your memory, last August meeting, I came before you asking to see if we can go out for quotes for our customer steam audit. We went out and we received 2 quotes from businesses. One was out of Medelia, and that was Southern Minnesota High Pressure Piping, and the other was Energy Insight Incorporated out of Chanhassen. Both bids, they were quite different. One was $3,120, and the other was pretty much $45 per trap, which had about a $600 minimum per location. So the $600 minimum location was based off of the $45 per trap. They were estimating that there could have been 10 to 12 traps in the building, so that's where the $600 minimum came in. So if that was the case and they did 10 locations, the minimum would be $6,000. So it's almost double the price. But kind of jumping down the agenda item, I kind of highlighted some things I thought were important because this is everything is going to be going not only coming to us, but it's going to be going to our customers. And just some things I highlighted was professional report, provide the customer, that will be provided to the customer. They're going to be providing condition of the steam traps if they're functioning or not, energy savings, supplying an example of different deliverables. And obviously the main purpose of the project was all these. So jumping back to the rest of the agenda item, Energy Insight supplied everything that we asked for within the going out for a quote. Southern Minnesota Piping, if you go back and you actually look at them, if you had a chance, you can look at them now. They've supplied very minimal information. They missed some important key aspects such as information on the employees' resumes that they're going to be supplying to us if they were hired, customer payback example, a narrative report describing the work associated in past audits, example of a log sheet to be developed during the survey to give to the customers. Energy Insight, not only I know their quote is higher, but they've given great examples of what they've done in the past and what we will get if they were selected and hired to do these steam audits. So I guess I feel comfortable paying more knowing exactly what I'm going to be getting rather than paying less not knowing what I'm going to get and what we will be supplying to our customers. So I would like your approval to hire Energy Insight to conduct these customer steam audits.
This is a cost that the commission's gonna pay, not the customers, is that?
Correct, yep.
Right.
Yep, this is what we're going to be paying
And
customers.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so what you're saying is the higher bid, the bid that came in that was higher appears to be more likely to meet the objectives of the project
Correct,
than the other bid.
correct. And I thought that was obvious just on what was what was given to us by the vendors.
Mhm.
I'll offer the motion to approve the selection of Energy Insight Incorporated as the vendor for customer steam audits.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Derek. Now, under new business, we need to look at our schedule of fees and charges.
So we're just updating our schedule of fees and charges for 2020, and there's only about 4 things that have changed for next year that we're proposing. We're proposing an increase of gas and electric disconnect meter for the temporary seal to go from $20 to $25. And then I won't read all the language from the fee in the electric department, but it has to do with solar generation installations and also the applications for those, the fee applications are there as well. And then for the water department and the wastewater department, we are proposing to increase the water infrastructure fee on the utility bills from $4.75 to $5.25 respectively.
Does anybody have any questions of Beth?
So I have one question. So on the distributed generation installations, so if someone puts solar panels on their roof, there's a $500 connection fee?
There's a $500 fee associated with that, but there's a lot of different avenues that we can go with that. So there's a couple different things associated with that, and maybe I'll ask Derek to come up and he deals with that more.
So the $500 fee, on the list of schedules and fees, there's lots of other different lists regarding the distributed generation and interconnection. That $500 fee is within what part is the uniform contract. Okay, that set fee is a fee coming to us based on mostly at this point changing the meter out. So there's a difference. In the past, there was, they'll have their residential meter, they'll need to be upgraded to the net metering or the bidirectional meter.
Yeah.
If I'm not, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the electric department installs and pays for the meter going into the residential building. The person asking for the distributed generation, interconnection, the solar mostly, is asking for that other meter, so they are actually paying for that meter. So what happens is, the meter that they want, the bidirectional meter, they're paying for, and we're subtracting already the amount that we've put in for that other meter that was initially was there.
Oh.
And the other part, other than that, there's probably about $300 in meter charge right there that they want, they're asking for. The additional $500 is to cover any other administration duties that need to be done and other fees. So that's kind of at least that $500 fee.
So in the spirit of renewables, I'm not sure that that's helping that for someone who might want to go ahead and do that. Just that, it seems like, you know, based on the study that we had about doing the community solar garden, you know, it was, that project really, you know, from a financial payback standpoint, didn't work by just a few $100s. So if someone goes to do this, well, we don't offer the community garden now. If you're gonna do it on your own property, then, you know, if it didn't work for the few $100s in the community one with a whole solar array, you know, it kind of takes the wind
Well,
out of the
these-
sails a little bit.
Yeah, these are people that want the solar, they can afford the solar. They're asking to use our infrastructure.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't need to get too involved in this. There's lots of other avenues. Obviously, we need solar and other renewables to fight the carbon issue, but also there's the stress on the utility for having them come in and wanting that, and we're forced to then purchase the energy and
but
take our time
are
to.
we doing net metering though?
They're getting net metering, so we're also paying
Right,
them
but I
back.
mean, I'm trying to remember this now.
Mhm.
So if the rate in town is 10 cents a kilowatt, they're generating, but aren't we able to take some of the cost of that infrastructure out of what they're generating and only pay them like 7?
Right now, for solar that is under 40 kW, we're able to take out the meter fee. And so it's really close. It's actually pretty close to the rate that we're charging them.
Okay,
So yeah, it's pretty much at $500 is to make sure the meter is covered.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd have to be paying for $300 each time they want a solar.
They're basically paying the differential between the regular meter that we install on a residential customer and the bidirectional. You know, we need to certify and make sure that, you know, have somebody go out there, make sure that that is hooked up correctly and that type of thing as well. So it, you know, there's $200 in administrative costs basically to cover staff time to do that.
It's I think that's a pretty standard fee. There's other cooperatives and other utilities that charge hundreds of dollars more.
thank you.
So you don't think this is a disincentive to people who would otherwise want to install solar?
I think it's part of what's going to be going on going forward. Yeah, the people that are going to be installing solar can afford to put solar up. It's the people that, yeah.
So the overall cost if a homeowner wanted to install solar, in order to be able to do that to start with, you're saying they would likely also be able to afford a $500 fee to the
Yes.
PUC?
Right. You know, I think what we're looking at is the fact that when people put in solar, they're using the infrastructure that other ratepayers are using. And so I think we want to be sure that if someone is choosing to put in solar, that they're paying for that service and that the other ratepayers are not subsidizing that in any way, because the other ratepayers obviously don't get any benefit from that solar installation. So that's I guess how, you know, how we're looking at that to cover costs.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Thank you.
I'll offer the motion to approve the 2020 PUC schedule of fees and charges to be effective January 1st, 2020.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item is to authorize a request for bids on fuel. Is that
Yep.
Beth again? Okay.
Yep. So, we use about 45,000 gallons of unleaded fuel and about 45,000 gallons of diesel fuel every year in the PUC and the city. And every 3 years, we try and go out for contracts on that. Our last contract expired in June of 2019. So we're just asking for permission to go out for bids on that and to advertise that. We're asking that the bids be back by December 11 at 1:30, where we will open the bids here in the council chambers, and then looking to bring that to the commission at the December commission meeting.
Okay, I'll authorize the city manager to prepare specifications and advertise for bids to supply bulk gasoline and diesel fuel for a 3-year contract period to the City of New Ulm and the Public Utilities Commission.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And Beth is on the next one too, regarding water service connection fee increases.
Yep. The water service connection fee is a fee that is mandated by the state of Minnesota, and that fee is increasing from 53 cents per billing period to the customer to 81 cents per billing period, and that equates to going from $6.36 per year to $9.72 per year. And again, we don't get a choice in that. It's mandated by the state of Minnesota. It's a fee they use to ensure that we have safe drinking water through inspections and things like that.
I'll offer the motion to receive and order filed the water service connection fee increase from 53 cents to 81 cents per month as mandated by the Minnesota legislature effective January 1st, 2020.
I'll second.
Any discussion of the motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item to consider is appointment of an creation of electric project engineer.
Okay, staff is asking to advertise and hire, excuse me, an electric project engineer for the New Ulm Public Utilities. We're recommending this mainly because we have some larger electric projects that are on the horizon, as well as things currently that we're working on, and we believe it would be advantageous to have this engineering experience. Everybody is extremely busy with projects that they're doing now, and just to have some of that experience would be helpful. We're looking at the range of pay to be anywhere between $33.13 to $40.30 per hour, but with that person being placed based on experience. Just as a note, in helping you to decide, the electric department is $25 million of our $43 million budget, so it's half of our budget as far as expenses. So if this would be approved, we'd be looking at adding approximately $100,000 to the 2020 budget.
Chris, do you foresee this replacing some of the consulting fees that we're paying in relation to some of these positions, or at least subsidizing?
I think that some of it would be. I mean, we're always going to have some consulting fees because I don't believe that this person would be able to take an entire electrical project and move it forward. But we're looking for is someone that can speak the language as well and maybe understand some of the nuances with the electric transmission and distribution. There's several areas we're looking at. Power factor, which is an issue. We're looking for someone that could possibly spearhead that project, and that would entail, meeting with our customers and possibly giving them options or helping them figure out what they need to do to increase their power, to improve their power factor, and that would be something that maybe this person would be able to work with. Also, we're looking at an asset management program, maybe possibly having this person help work through the electric side of that. So I think there's some specific projects that we're looking at that it would be beneficial to have this person on staff.
In other words, projects that are coming up that don't necessarily fit within somebody we already have, that we need an additional person for.
Well, yes and no, yes. We have staff on hand now. However, there's a significant amount of projects that we're
Right.
doing that we're hoping that it would help alleviate a little bit of some of the pressure and maybe help that person out as well to work through the projects.
Anyone have any other questions? Or
All right, I'll offer the motion to authorize staff to advertise for and hire an electric project engineer for the New Ulm Public Utilities.
Second.
any discussion of the motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Pose same sign. Motion carries. Next, we need to hear about a bid for high-pressure steam line upgrade construction services. Oh, sorry, did I miss one?
I think so.
Sanitary sewer connection? All right, we'll do that first.
I didn't know if mine was out of order.
Scribbling too much.
Okay, this is going back to an issue that was presented to the commission, I believe back in 2010. There are several properties that are not connected to our city sewer system, and these properties presently are served by septic systems. And in 2010, the issue was brought before the commission to notify the property owners that they needed to be in compliance with this regulation. It's Regulation 602. The regulation basically states that any property within 200 feet of an existing sewer shall have 60 days to make the connection after receiving the official notice. We have found that some of the property owners were notified back in 2010. We have not been able to find that all of them were. And so in the desire to be fair for everyone, we're looking at officially notifying the 10 customers that they need to comply with this. We think that a 60-day notice will impose some undue hardship on some of the properties. And so we're looking at following the steps that we originally talked about in 2010. Basically, that's upon the change of property ownership, the person would need to connect to the city sewer. If they attempt to establish the utility service under a new responsible party, at the time that the septic system is required to be replaced, or 5 years from December 1st of 2019. So based upon any of the four conditions, they would get a 60-day request to connect. Unless it's in the winter months, then we would look towards spring. So we want to get this back on the table. We want to clean this up and get these property owners connected and following the regulations. So I'm asking that we approve this and give the landowners the appropriate time to get connected.
So what does the cost look like for them?
It can be rather expensive. Depending on where it's located, it could be anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000.
So is this something, I mean, I like the idea of being generous. You know, if I got a thing and found out I had 60 days to
Yeah.
spend $6,000, that'd be a big deal. But is this not something that a property owner who purchased a house in that area would maybe not have been told when they bought the house, that you're subject to Regulation 602? I don't know that the answer is yes. I'm just curious, do we have any idea?
I am not sure when the properties were purchased, what they were told. I do know there was 2 properties that when we originally brought this to the commission, I was able to find 2 properties that were notified. One of those 2 properties did switch over in the time frame. The other one did not, and that property has since been sold. So that's kind of what triggered this whole thing. We didn't feel, or staff didn't feel it would be fair to now suddenly, because the property was sold, require the property owner, which is a different person now, to have to switch over. And so we're trying to clean something up that kind of got lost in the shuffle.
Is it unfair to the people who did switch over, though, that,
That others don't have to,
that, yeah,
or haven't had to.
and I don't know if
That
they're
they get an
maybe-
additional 5 years,
Right,
you mean?
yeah. I mean, were there people originally or at any point in time who went out and complied and now these
Yes,
people
there
got let
were.
go for 9 years, and so, you said 2010?
2010.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were property owners that did comply. Not many, I mean, like I said, I could only find 2 letters in our files of the letters that had gone out, so I'm not even sure whether or not, 8 of those 10 property owners were actually notified.
Do we have options for payment plans similar to like assessments if, a property owner couldn't pay for it, that we would look to maybe,
I would imagine that we could put it on there.
I can check with Steve if that's something that we can do.
Yeah, I'm not.
So this is work that the city would do. The property owner doesn't have to hire a private contractor to set this up?
Actually,
The conversion.
the property owner would hire a private contractor to come in and
Oh.
basically disconnect their septic system and then connect to sanitary sewer.
I'm just curious, like if someone has to update their septic, they can get a septic loan,
Okay.
to do that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so maybe if it is closer to that 6, or if it's gonna be
Yeah.
quite a cost.
I would imagine that, if somebody was, needed to do this, they could probably go to a bank. Well, you probably would know. If they could go to a bank, to get a loan for something
Yeah, you
like
could,
this
but
as
like if
well.
it was a septic, there's septic loan programs out there at
Oh,
like a
gotcha.
3%
Okay.
rate, not a
Okay,
bank rate.
not the
that
full
we could,
bank rate. Yeah.
that would be better for them to.
Yeah, yeah.
That maybe if we're gonna try and get everyone to do that, maybe we
Yeah.
wanna look at.
So,
If we were gonna do a program like that, then I would suggest that we take out the 5-year time and we look at potentially a shorter time frame then.
Sure.
so if we were to do this as it is, how do we in 2024, look back and go, hey, remember that?
How do you track it?
It was 5 years ago, do we put something in the tax records or, filed with the county or what is that mechanism to make sure that this actually takes place?
President Heine, I was considering, our office could explore the idea of perhaps filing something at the recorder's office so anyone who would purchase the property would be aware that this was out there. And we can look and see if that is I imagine it would be possible to do something like that after I'm assuming we would give these people notices
No.
now.
Yeah.
And then perhaps file something in the recorder's office so that anyone who would purchase it would be on notice, yes.
Yeah.
And we would have to.
And then, we'd have.
Interject and also go on your mapping, your engineering and GIS mapping.
You repeat that?
You have to go to the microphone.
Sorry about that. Dan O'Connor, New Ulm Wastewater Treatment Plant Supervisor. That would also go into our mapping system as well. I mean, obviously, we're gonna keep records of this moving forward, so it doesn't get pushed down the street again 10
doesn't
years,
fall
9
through the
years.
cracks.
But it would come and show up on all the mapping throughout the city, both city engineering and what our GSI PUC
PUC
technician
GSI.
does.
Okay.
I don't know.
Thank you.
It just feels kind of generous to let it go for 9 years and then
Well,
5 years to comply
yeah,
and.
the 5 years is following what was done in the past. You
Okay.
certainly can adjust that to a shorter time frame if you feel you want to.
Well, maybe it's not a big harm to the
You have to start
utility of the
somewhere.
community.
Mm-hmm.
And
As you said, we have no record of who received the letter and who didn't receive the letter.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
I have
Right,
record
right,
of two
right.
people that received the letter.
So
Yeah.
hard to say, well, we already gave you 9. We don't know if we give you
Mhm.
9.
Is there a penalty in the regulation for failing to comply? I don't think it's on.
Well, I think potentially they could be, disconnected.
From
what?
The point is we're
Well,
trying to get connected.
Sure that. I'm sorry, I don't
I don't think we have the full.
think we have the full regulation. I don't know, maybe the wastewater supervisor knows. Is there a penalty to them not connecting in the regulation?
criminally charge him, maybe.
No, there is no penalties in the 602A regulation. And some of the questions back here in the audience were, the county, Brown County, if you buy a house in rural, outside of New Ulm, you don't have a sewer pipe in your gravel road or in your front road. So if that is point of sale, they're notified, and then there's maybe that septic tank loan. I don't know if they're gonna do that in city limits, the loan program you were talking about, because we have infrastructure to collect sewer and to feed water. And that's really the property that was just sold. I'm sure they were not notified because you're within the city limits. There's a sewer pipe right out in their frontage road. But the county isn't looking at residential sales. They're looking at the urban sales where all you have is a drinking water well and a septic tank. And that's when people get, nabbed in inspections and improvements and whatever else. Or if you get a building permit and add a bedroom, that's when things get caught. But in the city limits, we sort of drop the ball within the county and the city on something
Yeah.
like this.
Well, maybe we're making a big deal out of nothing. What's the consequence of failing to do this? And so we've got somebody who's within the city system who could be on the public system who's still using a septic system. And what's the reason for the rule to start with that they have to switch? Is it, do we know where that
A
originates?
good number of these are in a wellhead protection plan. Hi.
That wasn't me.
So
Your lips weren't moving.
a lot of this area is in wellhead protection zone,
Mhm.
so we don't want any wastewater or any illicit
Right.
discharges in those wellhead. And that's a big portion of it.
So it's an environmental concern. And so the
Public
consequence,
health, yeah.
what would be the potential consequence is that there's a contamination somewhere and then somebody's gotta pay that.
Yeah.
Right.
So I have a question. Are you asking us to develop a loan program and bring this back?
No. I would have reservations about that.
Well,
I was
From
just
my
asking,
perspective.
like, are there options if it's a real hardship for someone, or?
I think I would be thinking more in terms of maybe we do the notice and we comply with the regulation, but there's some opportunity for people to request relief if it's a hardship for them to comply with the 60 days. But I'm open, maybe we just need to table this for tonight and take a little more time.
Sure.
If it's waited 9 years, we could probably wait another month.
Well, it's waited like 40 years,
Okay,
I would think, in some of the areas of town.
right,
Yeah.
right.
But like you said, I mean, we could approve it and put in that caveat for relief. If we find that we're getting a lot of people, I mean, can't we always re-meet to see what we could do to help?
Well, you could also,
Because did you want to get
change-
the letter out by December? Well, that's next week. Is that what you were looking to do, to meet that December
Sunday.
1st?
Oh,
Well,
That-
I was just saying that anytime after 5 years after that date, we'll send out the letters, as soon as we can get them out. But, the other option would be is if you wanted to reduce the amount of time to maybe, obviously nothing's gonna happen now because it's winter. You could reduce the time to a year, and then give people the option to, if it's a hardship to come, but,
I'm just, the city attorney, do we even have the authority to say as a commission, well, the regulation says you got 60 days, but we're just gonna issue a new rule here today and say that you got 5 years? Because anybody's gonna,
60 days from official notice.
right. But we're deciding to issue official notice and start enforcing this provision. Can we even
Well, what do you want? Do you want to, we can tell them they gotta do it in 60 days by the regulation.
I would say you'd add
That'd be an
add
option.
an addendum to the 602 regulation with that verbiage.
Right, which would require us to follow whatever the rules
Pub-
are to amend
Public
a regu-
notice, public
yeah.
comment.
Yeah. I don't, do you
I
think
don't
that we,
think
so you know
anyone
that,
get upset with us if we do, if we give them some time. I
So-
think there
so
would
in
all,
other words-
as you've pointed out, any of the real options for enforcing it aren't terribly attractive, and if it's going to cause a hardship.
We have
It'd
the
be a com-
ability to give them longer than what the regulation
If
says.
we wanted to really cover our bases, we could amend it to add something about a hardship or explore that.
Mhm.
And or we don't give an official notice and just say we're going to be doing this.
So are you really, that you're only asking for us to authorize that you give the notice, right? And then the rest of your suggestions is how you might be planning to handle it?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not asking us to approve a 5-year
Well,
extension, you just,
What would your notice say?
well, I
that,
would
though?
probably need to know what you want to be said in the letter. You know, we'll give notice and then give them options, I guess. You know, we need to tell them when it would get triggered.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my thought about this would be, not doing the 5-year deal. But I would do it similar to like the sidewalk program. You know, if the city decides to put sidewalks in your front yard, you know, there's basically it's a loan and you're paying it through your property tax bill until such time as that's
Yeah, the
paid off,
assessment
and then
thing
you're,
that-
you know, and so, you know, I would see it being handled maybe in a similar way.
Okay.
But
Well,
we
we-
don't do the work.
We're not
You
doing
know-
the
Right.
work though.
That's the problem.
I can't speak for what a plumber wants to do. Right?
Well, we
It
do
shows
have
plumbing, I
a
can't
water
tell.
service loan where if somebody's water
Yeah.
service needs to be repaired and they can't fix it, we will either fix it for them or they can have a plumber come in and do it. Then it is billed out to them. If they don't pay within a certain amount of time, then it is assessed on a, I think it's a 2-year or 5-year assessment.
I think at this point it may make sense to table it and flesh out some of these ideas.
Okay.
That would be, I think, my recommendation at this time.
anybody have a problem with that?
I'm fine with that.
All right,
And we have to meet.
Chris, with that water, with the water, where if they can't afford it, what happens then? How does that work?
Well, they ultimately pay it, but they'll
Yeah.
pay it as as an assessment on their taxes.
On the taxes?
Yes.
Okay.
But we don't, that's for water, that we don't necessarily have one of those for sewer at this time. It'd be
We do
something we'd
not.
have to explore, perhaps.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's only for, if there's a service line break, if their service line breaks. So,
okay, we'll move on to the bid award for high-pressure steam line
You
upgrade.
need a motion to table
construction.
it, or-
you need
Sorry?
a motion to
Motion to
table it?
Okay,
Do we?
I'll move to table the wastewater connection topic till next meeting.
I'll second.
we all got Thanksgiving on the brain or something tonight?
I don't know that we've ever tabled anything.
Yeah, I don't know if we've ever.
The record should reflect that the commission meant for 2 hours this afternoon going over the budget. This meeting. We have a motion and second to table the request to issue notices for sanitary sewer connection. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now, this is the third time I've asked to discuss the bid award for high-pressure steam line. Can we?
So, yeah, I think we should talk about that. This is something I've brought to you a few times. Last time we brought it here was on August 24th to get permission to develop the plans and specs and to go ahead and bid this project. Well, we now have some bids back. The apparent low bidder was Southern Minnesota High Pressure of Medelia. The total bid package was $391,049.54. I noticed in our budget meeting that last year we had 300,000 in the budget and not 200,000, so that's a typo on my part under budget and fiscal issues. But we have added to that budget $100,000 in next year's budget. So we have this money accounted for in the budget. And this is to replace that line for Firmenich. There's a small segment that's 4-inch that is directly behind our gas that shed laying parallel to the rail line. And they have a 4-inch going from the street into their building. So it's replacing those two segments of line to accommodate their increased flow, and it's being replaced with the 6-inch, which the rest of the line currently is. And they have requested not to have it shut down long enough to do this project, so we agreed to split the cost of doing some temporary bypass piping for that longer segment in between or right parallel to the rail. So if you have any other questions.
So this is gonna increase our revenue from Firmenich, is that ultimately?
Yes, they have.
Do we know by what amount?
They have some projections of what it is. I'm a little hesitant and a little bit skeptical of how big it'll be because they're doing some other efficiency projects at the same time. But the current configuration, they pretty much max it out right now with that 4-inch in there. So this big expansion is depending on this line going in the ground, and they will be using more. They currently peak out around 13,000 pounds an hour, and their projection, one of them that they gave me was about 36,000 pounds an hour.
Okay, so from a payoff standpoint, do we have an idea if it's like a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year?
We did the payoff. What did it?
It's looking more like if they max it out about a 10-year payback.
Yeah.
But then, of course, there's other value that we'll be getting too from it.
Oh, yes,
You
absolutely.
know, it's,
Just wondering if a payoff was done.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was.
I'll move to authorize the city manager to accept the bid and sign the contract documents for construction services for the high-pressure steam line upgrades from Southern Minnesota High Pressure Piping LLC of Medelia, Minnesota, in the amount of $391,049.54.
I'll second.
Any discussion on that motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and that motion carries. Next is to receive information about backup software and storage.
Yeah, good evening. Our current backup solution was put in place in about 2016, and we were scheduled to replace that in the coming year. In the meantime, we had a server outage in September and found some problems with being able to restore from our backups, and found in working with the vendors that this probably wasn't the best solution, or probably isn't the best solution for us going forward. It was at the time when we got it, but probably now it is not. Vendors have moved on to a different technology. So I started looking at what the options were and did some evaluations, and found a product that is more compatible with the servers and technology that we use. So currently we're out of space, and the solution isn't working very well. So what I'm asking for is authorization to move forward with replacing it today, or this year yet. We have some projects that we did not do this year that we had capital money budgeted for. And I have budgeted for this replacement in 2020. The current amount that this project would cost is about half of what I had budgeted for it originally. So we would get some savings here in 2019 if we moved with it now. There's also some rebates available if we would do this project now. And then we would be able to we would have enough space for our backups, and we'd also be able to expand whenever we want. Our current solution isn't expandable, so that's kind of a disadvantage.
I'll make the motion to approve the purchase of backup software from CDWG in the amount of $5,600 and storage server from SHI in the amount of $4,099.
I'll second.
Any discussion of the motion? All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Then we need a new wastewater treatment, no, we need to dispose of a wastewater treatment truck, right?
The wastewater department is asking to declare and dispose of their truck number 37. It's a 2000 Chevy 3500 two-wheel drive service truck. And we will, looking to sell it on GovDeals. The Kelly Blue Book is estimated at 5,000 and mileage is 63,000 for 19.
I'll offer the motion to declare wastewater treatment department's truck number 37, a 2000 Chevy 3500 two-wheel drive service truck as surplus property and authorize disposition pursuant to the requirements of the city code and charter.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Then we have our claims and estimates.
I'll offer the motion to consider acceptance of list of claims paid in the amount of $2,828,292.15 and approve the list of claims to be paid in the amount of $303,291.43.
I'll second.
Any discussion of the motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We now need to move into a brief closed session. Following our closed session, we'll adjourn, and at the time we adjourn, we'll be discussing our next meeting date. The meeting for December, normally on the fourth Tuesday, would be on Christmas Eve, and so we need to consider moving that meeting to December 30th, 2019. I don't know if we need a motion to approve that. Well, we might approve that after we go into closed session, but I thought I'd announce the meeting date before we go into closed session. And we need a motion to proceed into closed session?
I'll make the motion to proceed into closed session to discuss labor negotiation strategy for IBEW number 949.
Second.
Any discussion of the motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. The New Ulm Public Utilities Commission will convene into a closed session in accordance with Minnesota Statute 13D.03 to discuss labor negotiation strategy for IBEW number 949. I know, right? Is it? We'll be back in open session. I need a motion to adjourn to the next meeting date in December.
I'll make the motion to adjourn to Monday, December 30th, 2019 at 4:30 p.m. due to the Christmas Eve holiday.
Second.
Sorry, is that a Monday?
Yes.
Okay. Then I won't object. Any discussion of the motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries, and we are adjourned.